Your mom is supposed to be your day one, but for Joshua Oates, she became his literal executioner. Imagine being 11 years old, trapped in a hotel room while your own mother preps a holy ritual to delete you because she thinks you're a demon. No cap, this story is straight up nightmare fuel. We're talking about voodoo fixations, a 5-pound metal bar, and a bathtub blessing that is absolutely unhinged. You have to stay until the end, because the secret receipts police found in her car prove this wasn't a glitch in her mind, it was a cold-blooded plan. Let's get into the disturbing truth.
Before things got weird and went south, Joshua Oates was just a regular kid living his best life in Columbus, Ohio. Born in 2008, this 11-year-old was the definition of wholesome. His grandma literally nicknamed him Prince because he was so sweet and precious, always helping out and staying humble. Josh wasn't out here looking for trouble. He was a 6th grade student at Liberty Elementary who was into the simple things. He was a low-key musical prodigy, always rehearsing on his trombone and hitting the field for baseball games. He was a big brother who actually cared about his younger siblings, Mark and Justin. And he was even a person of faith, getting baptized at a young age. Everyone who knew him said he was the kind of kid who would give you the shirt off his back. He had goals, he had vibes, and he was just a month away from his 12th birthday when the person he trusted most decided to cancel his future. It's wild to think that such a bright, helping soul was being watched by a mother who was slowly starting to see him as an enemy. Joshua was just vibing, thinking he was safe, while the person meant to protect him was low-key plotting a ritual that would end everything.
In March 2020, while the whole world was starting to bug out over the lockdown, Latina Marie Oates decided it was time to dip. Without saying a word to her partner, Mark Sr., she packed up her 2 youngest boys and told them they were heading to New Orleans for a trip. This wasn't some planned-out family vacation with snacks and playlists. It was a secret mission. On the way, they swung by a friend's house to pick up Joshua, who had been staying over. That friend had no idea that when Joshua hopped into that white Toyota Camry, it would be the last time anyone saw him alive outside of that family circle. Marie was acting super sus from the jump, telling people she wanted to take the kids for a hike, but then heading straight for Louisiana and Mississippi instead. She was driving across state lines with a car full of kids and a backpack full of secrets. No one in Ohio knew where they were, and Mark Sr. was left in the dark, wondering why his roommate-style partner had suddenly ghosted with all 3 of his kids. The energy was off, the plan was shaky, and the destination was a hotel room that was about to become a crime scene.
Now, here's where the tea gets really bitter. Marie wasn't just going to New Orleans for the beads and the food. She was low-key obsessed with the occult. She was convinced she was a direct descendant of Mary Laveau, the legendary voodoo queen of New Orleans from back in the day. She wasn't just a fan, she really thought she was part of that lineage, a voodoo priestess in the making. According to the receipts, Marie had been diving deep into this stuff for a minute, and her mental state was starting to fry. She claimed she was hearing voices, spirits, ancestors, you name it, telling her that her family was under some kind of hex. She thought going to where her roots were in the South would fix the bad energy. But instead of finding peace, she was just feeding the delusions. She started seeing witches everywhere and believed people were turning her son Joshua into a literal demon. She was spiraling, thinking she was some kind of ancient queen like Cleopatra or Mary Magdalene, and her obsession with this voodoo aesthetic was about to turn into a high-key, violent reality. By March 14th, the crew pulled up to the Hampton Inn in Laurel, Mississippi. They checked in to room 319, and on the surface, it looked like a tired mom and her 3 boys just crashing for the night. But inside that room, the vibe was heavy. For 3 days, they stayed in that space, and things were getting increasingly erratic. Marie wasn't out here doing tourist stuff. She was cooped up, letting her mind run wild with these command hallucinations. The hotel staff didn't see anything crazy at first, but inside room 319, a ritual was being prepped. Marie was looking at her oldest son not as her flesh and blood, but as a threat to her other two boys. She was convinced that to save Mark Jr. and Justin, she had to deactivate the bad energy coming from Joshua. She was essentially turning a standard hotel stay into a sacrificial altar, and the walls of that room were about to witness a level of savagery that even seasoned cops couldn't handle.
Let's talk about the premeditation, because this is where the insanity defense starts to look like a straight-up lie. The day before the tragedy, Marie dipped out to a local dollar store. She wasn't buying snacks or toys, she bought a pack of NyQuil. Now, why does an 11-year-old need a whole pack of sleep meds? Marie claimed she wanted to give it to Joshua so he would sleep through what she was about to do, because she didn't want to hurt him more than she had to. But here's the kicker. The toxicology report later showed that Joshua had 0 meds in his system. That means she actually gave the NyQuil to the 2 little brothers, Mark and Justin. She wanted the witnesses knocked out so she could do her work in the bathroom without them seeing. That's not a woman who's lost her mind. That's a woman who's planning a tactical strike. She was trying to ghost the only people who could tell the truth. But luckily for Justice, the meds didn't work the way she wanted, and the boys stayed awake for the whole nightmare.
When the clock hit those early hours on St. Patrick's Day, Marie decided it was officially go time. She dipped out to her car for a quick smoke, probably trying to get her mind right for the darkness she was about to unleash. She reached into her ride and grabbed her backpack, which was hiding what she called an ancient dagger. But let's keep it 100. There was nothing ancient about it. In reality, it was just a cold, heavy 5-pound metal bar she had brought all the way from Ohio for this specific moment. She headed back upstairs to the room, move by move, and started setting the stage for her sick ritual. She filled the bathtub to the brim with water and then did something totally out of pocket. She took a piece of paper she had used in the restroom and tossed it straight into the tub. Later, she told the investigators that this was her twisted way of blessing the water, thinking she was turning it holy so it would be ready for the sacrifice. She was basically trying to manifest a sacred space out of absolute filth. The level of delusion she was rocking was through the roof, but don't get it twisted. Every step she took was calculated and organized. She was playing the part of a high priestess on a mission, but the cold truth is, she was just a mother preparing to end the life of her own child, right there in this hotel bathroom. The clock was ticking, and Joshua was fast asleep in bed, totally unaware that his mom was standing over him with a metal bar. Marie tried to end it quickly by plunging the bar into his chest while he was still dreaming. But Josh wasn't going out like that. He woke up and started fighting back for his life. Imagine the confusion and the pure terror of waking up to your own mom trying to delete you. He was scrambling, caught in a life-or-death struggle in the dark. But Marie was stronger and more determined. She dragged him across the floor and into the bathroom, slamming the door shut while his younger brothers watched in total shock from their beds. They could hear their big brother screaming, asking, "Mom, why are you doing this?" It's the most heartbreaking thing you could ever imagine, a kid pleading for his life to the person who gave it to him. Inside that bathroom, the struggle was brutal and long. Joshua didn't just give up. He had defensive wounds all over his arms and hands, showing he fought until his very last breath. Marie was relentless. She forced his head underwater in that blessed tub, holding him down until he stopped moving. But she didn't stop there. Once he was lifeless, she took that 5-pound metal bar and drove it 4 inches deep into the back of his skull. The autopsy later revealed he had 45 separate injuries, including 10 puncture wounds to his head that went straight through the bone. This wasn't a quick or merciful act, it was straight-up torture. She was overkilling him because she was convinced she was fighting a demon that wouldn't die. The scene she left behind was so gruesome that even the hardest detectives who saw it later were visibly shaken. Joshua Oates, the prince, was gone, and the bathroom of room 319 was covered in the evidence of a mother's total betrayal. While all that horror was going down in the bathroom, 6-year-old Mark and 9-year-old Justin were stuck in the bedroom, listening to everything. They saw the red blood seeping out from under the door. When Marie finally walked out, she was covered in it, looking like something straight out of a horror flick. But the nightmare wasn't over for them. She told them they weren't allowed to go in that bathroom under any circumstances. If they had to use the restroom, she told them to use plastic bottles or just do it on the floor. For hours, those kids were trapped in a room with their brother's body just a few feet away, living in filth and fear. The investigators said the room was full of waste and vomit when they found it later. Those boys went through a psychological hell that's going to take a lifetime to process, all because their mom was obeying the voices. After the sun came up, Marie decided it was time to bounce. She packed up the 2 younger boys, left Joshua's body on the bathroom floor, and walked out of the Hampton Inn like nothing had happened. Security footage showed her getting into the white Toyota Camry with the Ohio plates and driving away around noon. She was headed back toward New Orleans, acting like she was just on a regular drive. She didn't call for help, she didn't turn herself in, and she didn't show a shred of remorse. She just dipped, leaving her oldest son in a pool of blood for a housekeeper to find. She was still in priestess mode, thinking she had successfully saved her other kids from the demon she just deleted. The coldness of her departure is one of the most chilling parts of this whole case. Around noon on St. Patrick's Day, a housekeeper at the Hampton Inn went to clean room 319 for the next guest. She walked in expecting to change some sheets and empty some trash, but instead, she walked into a slaughterhouse. She saw the state of the room, the waste, the smell, and then she found Joshua in the bathroom. She didn't stay to investigate. She ran out of there and called the cops immediately. When the police arrived, they were stunned. They found the altar Marie had set up, the bathtub full of blood and urine, and the metal bar still driven into the kid's head. They knew they had a monster on the loose, and they knew 2 other kids were in danger. The Amber Alert was blasted out across the state, and the hunt for the white Toyota Camry was officially on. The New Orleans police and Mississippi authorities were working overtime, tracing the direction the Camry went. On March 18th, just a day after the body was found, they got a tip about a car matching the description parked in a random driveway in New Orleans. The residents of the house had no clue who Marie was. She had just pulled up and parked there, probably confused or waiting for the spirits to tell her what to do next. When the cops rolled up, they found Marie, Mark Jr., and Justin all sitting in the car. The younger boys were physically okay, thank God, but they were definitely shell-shocked. Marie didn't even try to run. When the handcuffs went on, she told police she knew why they were there and that she didn't mean it. But the evidence in that hotel room said otherwise. During her interrogation at the Jones County Adult Detention Center, Marie didn't hold back on the crazy. She told detectives in graphic detail how she did it, but she kept insisting she wasn't the bad guy. She claimed she heard spirits telling her Joshua was a demon and a threat to her other kids. She said she felt she had to sacrifice him to save the others. When an officer told her that mothers are supposed to sacrifice themselves for their kids, she snapped back and said she would have if the child was actually hers. She was fully leaning into the idea that Joshua had been replaced by a monster. But then, she'd flip the switch and ask for a fresh pair of socks and some clean underwear, showing a bizarre lack of empathy for the son she just killed. She was trying to play both sides, the victim of spirits and the protective mother. After she was locked up, Marie was allowed one phone call. She didn't call a lawyer, she called her husband, Mark Sr. Can you imagine getting that call? Your partner, who vanished with your kids, calls you from jail to tell you your oldest son is dead? Mark was at a total loss for words, just devastated. And Marie? She wasn't crying or apologizing. She was just asking him for basic supplies and acting like it was an inconvenience. Mark later testified that she had become extremely religious in the months leading up to the trip, but he never thought she'd go this far. He mentioned a time he had to call EMTs because she was acting erratically, but she was never officially committed. This call was the final nail in the coffin of their relationship, and the start of Mark's long journey to get justice for his son.
When the case went to court, Marie's defense team pulled the oldest trick in the book, the insanity plea. They claimed she had undiagnosed schizophrenia and was in the middle of a psychotic break. They even brought in forensic psychologists, Dr. Chris Lott and Robert Storer, who initially thought she was legit delusional. They pointed to her claims of being Cleopatra and hearing the voice of Jesus. But here's the drama. Marie's mom was a mental health worker in Ohio, and there were rumors that she was coaching Marie on how to act schizophrenic to dodge the death penalty. People noticed that her symptoms got way more intense and movie-like the longer she sat in jail. She started talking about upside-down rosaries and command hallucinations only after she talked to her legal team. The prosecution was calling cap on the whole thing.
Enter Katie Sumrall, the lead prosecutor who wasn't playing any games. She was a mom herself and took this case personally. She dismantled the insane narrative by pointing to the consistent truth. She asked why, if Marie was being commanded by voices, she could choose when to obey them. Like she decided not to bury the body in Native American land because she couldn't find a parking spot? That's not a woman controlled by spirits. That's a woman making logical choices based on convenience. Samra showed the jury that Marie was highly intelligent. She had her own business, she wrote manuals, and she was a capable woman. The ritual wasn't a sign of madness, it was a sign of a woman who wanted out of her life and found a way to delete her responsibilities while using a voodoo aesthetic as a cover.
There's this time period where she's in jail with no meds and no counseling, and she's fine. The story gets more detailed and crazier sounding as it goes. When she first tells it, there's nothing about a rosary being upside down. That comes straight out of a horror movie. It gets more detailed and more crazy, and I had to wipe myself and throw it in the tub. I mean, come on. The truth is consistent. And the interviewer asks Justin, what happens in your family when somebody gets in trouble? How is discipline given? Well, mom talks to us. What does mom say when she disciplines you? I hate this family. That's what mom says when she disciplines the kids. Maybe mom wanted out, and she found her way. Mom left with no suitcases for either of the kids, none of them. Mom had paid rent 2 months in advance. Why would she do that? Maybe mom had no intention of returning with any children. She was when to obey the voices and when not to. I have to take the stake to the forest and I have to bury it in the Native American land because it will deactivate the bad energy. But I get there and there's nowhere to park. So we just left. She made a decision then not to obey the voices. But she had no way to disobey them. During however long it had to take to inflict more than 60 wounds to her 11-year-old, whose baby brothers can hear saying, Mom, why would you do this? I'm sorry.
The trial boiled down to one question. Did Marie actually believe Joshua was a demon, or did she just want him gone? The prosecution brought out the dollar store receipts for the NyQuil. They showed that she brought the metal bar all the way from Ohio, showing she had the tools for the job before she even left home. They showed that she turned off her phone the second she saw the Amber Alert, showing she knew she was hot and on the run. You don't hide from the cops if you think you've done a holy deed. The jury saw a woman who was manipulative, smart, and cold. They saw a woman who used her knowledge of psychology to try and game the system. The Voodoo Priestess Act was falling apart under the weight of the actual facts.
On September 29, 2023, the judge finally handed down the sentence. Latina Marie Oates was found fit to stand trial as a sane person. The jury wasn't buying the insanity plea, and neither was the judge. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for capital murder. They chose not to go for the death penalty, mainly because they didn't want to force Mark Jr. and Justin to have to testify against their own mom in a capital case. They had already been through enough trauma. Marie is now spending the rest of her days in a cell, far away from any spirits or altars. Justice was served for Joshua, but the cost was a family completely destroyed. As we wrap this up, let's remember the real hero of the story, Joshua Oates. He was a kid who fought to the very end against impossible odds. His story is a tragic reminder that sometimes the monsters aren't under the bed, they're the ones tucking you in. To Mark and Justin, if you're out there, your past doesn't define you. You're survivors, and you have the strength to build a better future. For the rest of us, this case is a wake-up call to take mental health and domestic red flags seriously before they turn into headlines. Joshua Oates, the Prince, will never be forgotten. If this story hits you hard, drop a "Rest in Peace, Joshua" in the comments, and make sure you hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the cases that the world needs to hear. Stay safe out there, because you never know what's going on behind closed doors. This is the disturbing truth.